Thanks, Michael. So what I just wanted to cover off with you was the R&D portfolio. So this is a significant part of the live export program, and I just wanted to run through the budget and the expenditure that we have in our very strategic imperatives. So for this current existing financial year, for 15-16, we have three areas which we invest in. So improved animal welfare. Of the $2.9 million that we've got budgeted, $2.2 million actually goes towards animal welfare programs. Here domestically for our export at the domestic end of the supply chain right through to point of slaughter in market. So you can see that that's a big, the main priority area for the R&D portfolio currently. Then we have the supply chain efficiency, of which we allocate $500,000 a year, and then market access, so developing new markets, and in terms of trade we allocate $200,000. Whoops, just go backwards if I may. Thank you. So essentially this is just a diagrammatic breakup of the allocation of our investment. So 76% of our funds go towards animal welfare, which is a vital part of our industry. 17% towards supply chain efficiency and market access. And so just to put things into perspective, for the research funds that we have through our program, they're actually matched dollar for dollar by the Australian government. So to keep things fairly simple, generally it's a 25% contribution from MLAs, so producer levies, and 25% from exporter levies coming through LiveCorp. It is to be acknowledged, however, this year that LiveCorp are making a increased contribution to our program. So this enables us, generally we run about the 2.4 million, but this year we're running on 2.92 million. Next, please. So in the portfolio, we currently have 31 active projects. So we've broken them up into short, medium and long term. So 16 projects are generally we fund that are under less than $100,000. We have more the medium the term projects that are greater than $100,000 that go over a longer period of time. We have 9 of those currently, and then the long-term significant investments are in the vicinity of $250,000 or more. Currently we have 6 of those. Some of these you'll be hearing about over the next couple of days, and in particular LGAP. So this is the Global Assurance Program that the industry's working towards. So Peter Schuster will be speaking about that tomorrow. So just to quickly cover off what the objective of our R&D is. So it's to support continuous improvement. Another important part of our R&D portfolio is, particularly with the implementation of SCAS over the last 4 years, there's been about $3 million put towards training materials and resources, so SOPs, training DVDs, stunner maintenance DVDs, which we actually had translated into the languages for our destination markets. So we are also looking for things that help us to be more sustainable. We see that LGAP is a priority project that will hopefully offer the industry long-term sustainability should they choose to implement. Our projects, we hope, are targeted and consistent, effective, and then the research is transparent. And this all comes under these 3 strategic imperatives through animal welfare, supply chain efficiency and market access. So how R&D is conducted, it's just important to draw your attention that this is not made in isolation. It's not myself or any other person sitting in a room coming up with ideas, but we operate this under a committee. So it's a development, so LIRDAC is the acronym for it, so that's the Live Export Research and Development Advisory Committee. Now that's made up by key representatives across the industry, based from a producer right through to the exporters. So Richard Trivett is our chairman, and he chairs our committee, and he helps us strategise and set the strategy for our R&D projects. We also have other ALEC representatives of exporters, so they generally do sheep and cattle. And then we have Peak Industry Council representatives, so we have one from Sheep Meats Council and also Cattle Council. And we also like to have the policy people that are working in Canberra. They generally, when possible, also come and attend to the meetings to observe what's actually happening. So we have the strategy and the operation set by, the strategy and the direction set by LIVEXchange, and then underneath LIVEXchange we actually have a management committee which is a smaller subset. So that is made up of our chairman and then the operational people from the MLA and LiveCorp representatives. Also important to draw attention to on our research committee is we have an independent. So he has no involvement in the industry whatsoever. He's a veterinarian. He's completely independent. He sits on our committee to ensure that the methodology is going to achieve us the outcomes as identified in the projects. We've already talked about we have short, medium and long term, and we look to fill knowledge gaps, develop resources. A lot of our work that we do tends to go into, so we do the science behind the best practice that then delivers outcomes and guidelines for industry, be that in handbooks, best practice manuals, or also training resources. Next, please. So basically this is just a diagrammatic representation of what I've covered, but the steps once we receive projects or if we identified projects and what the steps are to get that project from inception right through to the end product. So there's various ways. There may be a request that comes in to me or to MLA or to LiveCorp. That concept is then considered generally by the LIVEXchange committee, so that's the bigger committee made up of the 13 members. We discuss, is it a priority? Is it something that we genuinely believe that we need to do? And we look at all aspects of that project. So that generally comes in as a concept or a preliminary application of which we have a template for. If that's then supported by the bigger committee, that is then gone back to the appropriate company person who submitted the application, and we then either develop a terms of reference for that project concept, depending on the origin of that concept, or we actually ask for a full application with a full budget, a full breakdown of the methodology and the objectives to be achieved from that project. That's generally, depending on the nature or the size of that project, is considered at a minimum by the management committee, but generally the management committee then makes a decision whether that then goes to the wider committee or the direction from LIVEXchange is we agree with the concept and then management committee basically keep it moving. The LIVEXchange committee meets 3 times a year, so generally March, July, and we met at the start of November. The management committee meets 6 times a year just to keep the ball rolling with projects. There's either tenders submitted or the applications are considered. They're ranked on basis and merit, the nature of how value for money, and that is then either signed off on or goes back to the committee for further consideration. So it's quite a rigorous process that we undertake. Then once it's signed off by the respective committee, it then goes to an application, to a project contract, and then we have milestones of which we get reports back from the researchers, and then they're paid against the milestones. We're really tightening up on deliveries and deliverables to keep on time and to budget, and then we're aiming to, once we accept that milestone, we then pay, and then obviously the final report is rigorously reviewed before that project's closed out. When that project's then closed out, we try our best, depending on the nature of the research, whether it's actually research or research for best practice guidelines, as to whether that goes into a published journal or into a best practice guideline. And then obviously a big part that we work hard at and need to work harder at, I believe, is our extension and getting out the information that we're actually doing through our program. Next slide, please. So just quickly, we've talked about the importance of extension. We're trying to do more of that with technology helping us through webinars, so recording webinars about certain key projects. I try to get round to the agricultural universities and veterinary universities to talk about the program, what we do, the challenges, why we do what we do, because it's important that we keep young people coming along into our industry. We do twice yearly briefings with the Department of Agriculture, which is critical given they fund 50% of what we do. And then, so there are RD&E updates floating around over the next couple of days, and then we try and do forums at minimum once a year. As I said, all our R&D projects were completely transparent. They go through a rigorous process from go to O, and they're all made publicly available on the MLA and LiveCorp website. There are some documents that we keep as internal working documents to help us strategise our projects, so they may not necessarily be published, but where possible, the aim is for us to get all our projects out into the public domain. Just in closing, we've got key priority projects I've already covered off on LGAP, pardon me, so we'll hear about that from Peter Schuster tomorrow. Heat management in sheep, where we're learning a lot about and understanding management heat load in sheep in the Middle East. We're doing some extension documents around that for tips and tools, animal welfare indicators, so what things can we be reporting along the supply chain from farm gate right through to point of slaughter that demonstrates continual improvement so that we can report that back. Inanition, we've had a big project. So inanition is identifying shied feeders before they go on boats, and we're developing a tips and tools. So that's been a 4-year project in the making, and we've individually monitored feeding and drinking patterns of about 15,000 sheep from that project. We're working on a manual for live air, so we obviously send a lot of high-value livestock for live air, so we're doing a best practice manual for that. And then you'll also hear shortly from Steve Meerwald about traceability options. So traceability is one thing that we need to be on top of in this industry, and we're just looking at other ways to potentially manage that. Next slide, please. So salmonella, this has also been a big project. So we've embarked on development of a salmonella vaccine for sheep. That will now go into a multi-donor company, so that project is in the process of being signed up with a commercialiser that will then get the product that we actually sent to the United States. So in layman's terms, we actually deleted the salmonella strain down, but to keep it still safe. And that is in the process. We've had a permit granted to bring that back, and that's in the process of going through approvals to leave the States very shortly. And then that will hopefully, the aim is to have a vaccine commercialised sometime in 2017, so we'll watch that one with interest. We've got lots of resources that we've developed. We've got some new ones about to come online. Of importance is the Beef Breeder Manual, so that's a manual for cold climates. So we're sending cattle up into cold climates, so there's actually a 200-page manual, a manual of tech notes, which is the shorter version of the document, and then we've got some train the trainer presentations. So the representatives, so exporters or any of the LEP staff that are actually going into market can be armed with those tools. We've got veterinary manual, that's out in the domain, but we're trying to make that more pictorial and adding photos to it to make it easier and more user-friendly. And you will see in the media that the ACEL app is now also online. And I think that's it, if you can go to the next slide. So I hope I'm on time. Thank you.